Yeah. So Adam will probably agree with this statement that cotton plant was probably one of the epicenters for glyphosate-resistant pigweed. And if he hadn't have changed his planting practices looking at cover crops, I mean, he'd be
I'd be out of business.
you'd be out of business. I mean, I don't know if anybody's been through cotton plant, not much through cotton plant, but what, 7, 8 years ago, I mean, just about every field had pigweeds growing in them, and it was tough. But you know, I think Adam would admit that, you know, he's probably learned more from mistakes and failures than, you know, stuff that worked right. So, but I'm going to just kind of run through, you know, and talk about some of the stuff where we're looking at. You know, Adam covered a lot of these. You know, field selection is key. If you're on some of these fields and you have PPO, glyphosate-resistant palmer amaranth, and you're not incorporating cover crops or something like that, it's going to be pretty much impossible to keep those fields clean in conventional practices, because, you know, a lot of the resistance we have now, well, we've got populations right now in the state that have six-way herbicide resistance. And so that's the ALSs, the DNAs, PPOs. You know, it's just going to be difficult using the older chemistries to control these problems. We'll talk a little bit about variety selection. Adam talked a little bit about some of the stuff he's working on. But really, you need to know what weed you have and know, you know, how to control those. And then once you kind of understand that, you need to overlap your residuals. Metribuzin is a must. You know, we've got to have metribuzin in the key. Narrowing up our row spacing is practically going to be impossible to grow conventional beans with, you know, the weed problems that we have on wide rows. You're going to have to be 15 inches or less just to try to get that canopy closed pretty quickly, and then planting early. But the question was, you know, the June planted beans, half of our crop in the state last year was planted after June 1st. It was just because of all the wet environments that we had. So this is just kind of looking down the breakdown of the variety technologies that we had in the OVT in 2019. You know, Extend comprised a big percentage, you know, 62%. We had 15 entries that were conventional. A lot of these were experimental varieties from the different, mainly from the universities, from Missouri and the University of Arkansas. And so, you know, we still got, you know, a pretty active breeding program in the public universities. And then I was actually at a meeting that Ozark Mountain Poultry had about 2 weeks ago, and was really surprised at the number of private companies that had conventional offerings. I mean, some of them I'd never heard of. And so, you know, there's starting to be a bigger push, I think, just in the last couple of years on conventional beans. And I think mainly in Arkansas it's due to the poultry industry. So just kind of looking at, this is from 4 locations this past year. All were irrigated, Kaiser, Marianna. So Kaiser, Northeast Arkansas, Marianna, almost straight across the river, Pine Tree around the Forest City area, and the Roar location down in Southeast Arkansas. The main reason I kind of pulled these 4 together, they were all planted within a 2-day period. So this is kind of the best snapshot we have on kind of looking at the herbicide technologies and kind of the yields across multiple locations. But if you look, the average, this is the grand mean for each of the technologies. So conventionals, Enlist, Liberty Link, LLGT 27s, Roundup Ready 2s, and Extend varieties. The number of entries within the test, and so this is 3.5 to 4.4. But again, you know, Enlist, you know, had the highest average, but again, you know, if you look at the conventionals, they're within, you know, about 3 bushel difference. And so really, you're not going to be able to discern that, you know, across multiple locations. Pretty much the same. The conventionals dropped off a little bit, I think, just because we really don't have a whole lot of 4.5s to 4.9s in the test. But the highest yielding technology was the Enlist at 70.7, and so the conventionals dropped off a little bit, but again, you know, we're in that mid to upper 60s for all the technologies in 2019. 5.0s to 5.9s, a few more entries, you know, and we're within about 3 bushels, 3.5 bushels of the Liberty Link. There was just 1 entry, so it could be a little bit biased, but, you know, if you look at 70, 67, you know, so we're within, again, 2.5, 3 bushels. And so Adam showed this, and this is actually kind of an average price or price range across 3 different points of sale. And so it was what I consider kind of a co-op, and then individual kind of a local co-op, and then talking to one of the seed producers. And so this kind of gives you an idea on what the seed prices are for this coming year. And these are suggested retail prices, straight seed, no seed treatments. And so again, conventionals are running somewhere around 30 to 35, and you can see roundups, 60 to mid 60s. Extends are going to be the most expensive, 70 to 77. LibertyLink 60 to 67. LibertyLink GT 27, 53 to 64. So again, Adam showed, seed costs, that's where you might be able to save a little bit of money. And if you do have the capability of cleaning seed and saving seed, you have that option. So you can actually, increase that savings, with the conventionals. Herbicide cost, anywhere from low 60s to upper 70s, upper 80s, mid 80s. But if you overall, so all of these had the same base burn down price. So it was glyphosate 2,4-D as a straight burn down. So all of these, had the same burn down. And then once we got in season is really kind of where we started seeing the differences in the price on the herbicide cost. But again, I would have thought the conventionals would have been a little bit more, but some of the new chemistries, are still, and these are name branded products. These aren't generic products. So even, if you're looking at generic products, these prices may be a little bit lower. But again, and these are taken from budgets, the 2019 budgets that the university produces. And so again, herbicide cost is, in line, but that's going to change from year to year. It's going to change from farm to farm. It may be up in the upper 80s, the lower 90s if you have some additional problems. So some of the stuff we've been doing the last couple of years, I've been working with some county agents trying to do some on-farm demos. And so these are large log strip plots. Try to get at least, approximately a 3-acre strip. So each location gets 3 bags of each of the varieties. These again, with the weather environments we had last year, all of these were planted June. So the Woodruff County was June the 12th, Arkansas County was June the 19th, and then Faulkner County was June the 22nd, and it was non-irrigated. So that's the reason that the yields are a little bit lower. But for almost July planted beans, 45 bushels is not too bad. But again, pretty good yields. Looking at the conventionals, several different companies, Virtue, Drew Soy, Go Soy, University, 2 university varieties. And so, we're still looking at, competitive yields on the conventional varieties that we currently have on the market. This was the OMP yield trial that they did this past year in Craighead County, planted June the 3rd. I worked with them on trying to get some of the varieties, again, a few more varieties in their test, but all the varieties were, from 59 to 49 was kind of the spread, so you're looking at a 10 bushel difference in yield. So, but again, we're seeing some, even planted late, seeing some pretty good yields. So when you're looking at conventional system, not many options on herbicide, especially with the 6-way resistance that we have. Metribuzin is going to be a must. Residuals, we'll have to, get out there and do those early post applications and overlay residuals with those applications. But the main thing here, and I think, this is what Adam really kind of emphasized, is you're going to have to change up your farming practices quite a bit, especially if you're in some of these areas where you have some really tough weed problems. But cover crops, Adam mentioned a lot on cover crops, and then narrow row spacing. These are some of the things we can do to try to eliminate some of those weed pressures. Planting dates. Adam talked about some of the planting dates. If you look at the data, this is a project funded by USB and the Mid-South Soybean Board. If you even look out here, June the 1st, Roar, Arkansas, which is down south, Kaiser up north. So somewhere in between is cotton plant. So you're looking at somewhere around a lower 90s, upper 80s reduction in yield by delaying planting up to the June the 1st. And so if we can really kind of push this back, especially in southern Arkansas, try to focus our planting around the 1st of April. Southern Arkansas or northern Arkansas is a little bit pushed back about the 1st of May. But, to be really competitive, especially on these conventional fields, we need to be planting in the optimum time so we can get really good growth and try to get those canopies closed as quick as possible. So just kind of some pros and cons, and Adam may have some others, but pros are seed cost and possibly saving the seed depending on where your seed is coming from. Premiums anywhere I've heard from 50 cents to $2, but that's going to vary from where you're delivering it and what time you're delivering it. Potentially new markets. There's a lot of interest in not just soybeans for poultry production, but also natto and some of these other specialty food products that are what we consider non-GMO, and they're going to fall into pretty much the same production scheme as what we've been talking about today. Some of the cons, again, weed control is going to be a challenge. We all know that. If herbicides didn't work 30 years ago when you were growing conventional beans, they're not going to work again just because we haven't gotten rid of the weed pressures that we had 30 years ago. We still have those weeds in the fields. May need to change up our agronomic practices, look at cover crops, narrow row spacing. To do this, you may have to buy new equipment, modify equipment, change the way you irrigate, things like that. So these are all considerations you need to keep in mind. And then seed segregation, not only at harvest, but also at planting. If you get seed contamination at planting, you're screwed, and you really won't know it till you get to harvest and they start pulling samples and you're showing some GMO contamination in that. So if you are looking at saving your seed, you need to be aware and have dedicated storage facilities, for your non-GMO crop. So questions, comments, any for me or Adam? All right. Again, CEU signups in the back for those that need credits. And again, appreciate your time and coming to hear us talk again. But I think Adam's going to be talking about cotton later this afternoon. So if you want to come here and talk again about cotton. So again, thanks.